It is time to put up or shut up in Morgantown for the West Virginia Mountaineers as they get ready to host the 19th ranked BYU Cougars. AJ Dybantsa coming to Morgantown. He might be one of the best players to ever come play at the WVU Coliseum. I saw a tweet about that earlier. We're going to have you covered here in this game preview episode of Mountaineer Moment, episode 156, previewing the action between the Mountaineers and the Cougars. Stick around. This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Mountaineer Moment, episode 156. And this is your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. My name is Troy, and I am your host here on Mountaineer Moment. We would love for you to join this growing community of Mountaineer Moment. Hit that subscribe button for us, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I know, and I feel like I've been saying this for a while. We've been approaching 500 subscribers on YouTube for this show that's been in existence since late August, so 6 months under our belt, almost 500 subscribers, 156 episodes. Man, we're keep plugging away at this thing as consistent as all get out, giving you previews and recaps of every single Mountaineer basketball game to date. We don't plan on stopping anytime soon. And then, of course, have you covered with West Virginia football as well. So hit that subscribe button for me, please, as we just continue to grow this community. And that subscriber count helps me, and it helps you, let you know when we have new content coming your way. So, again, this is a familiar episode for you. If you've been here at Mountaineer Moment any amount of time recently, we give you a preview of every West Virginia basketball game. And on Saturday night, West Virginia is back at the Coliseum the last day of February, meaning literally March is around the corner. Best month on the calendar. And West Virginia 5:30 tip on Fox hosting AJ Dybantsa and BYU. 19th ranked Cougars. West Virginia, obviously, I think it's safe to say, actually, I know it's safe to say, this last 3-game stretch has been the roughest 3-game stretch that the Mountaineers have had. I don't think I have to fact check this. I think this is true. This has been their first 3 games losing streak all season long. Just a tough stretch. And if you follow the Mountaineer basketball program, or if you're a BYU fan, let me tell you about it. West Virginia, just not even 10 days ago, hosted Utah, a 9-win Utah team at the time, and that was after a win against UCF, where West Virginia had a 14-point lead 14-point deficit that they overcame and beat UCF on the road. So they were riding a high. That had jumped them into the conversation with the NCAA tournament bubble, and then you lose to Utah at home, and you kind of fall from that conversation a little bit, although there was still lots of talk of, then they have a big road trip. TCU and Oklahoma State, 2 teams that are on the bubble, 2 teams that are considered. Go beat them. West Virginia falls to both. One was in overtime most recently to Oklahoma State back on Tuesday night, and then they fell previously to TCU in a 60-54 game in which they had a late lead and didn't score down the stretch. And that's how we've arrived at where we're at. And again, it's West Virginia's reeling. There's no doubt about it. So we'll talk about that in context through this episode. We'll talk about how this West Virginia team can rewrite the narrative of sorts, because as is typical with bubble teams, like there's missed opportunities, right? If you end your season on the wrong side of the bubble, you end it with like, man, if we would have got that one, or if we would have got this one, or if we would have got those 2 on the road, or if we would have done, there's lots of what ifs. How can West Virginia, even though, like I've said over the last couple episodes, I'm not really going to continue to talk about the bubble, unless things change drastically. We're just going to preview the action, but West Virginia has 3 regular season games left. You got a conference tournament. How can West Virginia basketball for the year 2025-2026, how can they rewrite the narrative a little bit on, what this season has become over just the last 3 games? And again, that's only been the last 10 days. We talked about that. A lot can change in the course of a week when West Virginia lost 3 straight. So we're going to talk about rewriting the narrative, and then ultimately this is another opportunity against a ranked team at home even if I'm not going to call it a resume builder because like we're not really even focused on that at this moment, at this point in time, it's an opportunity to get a big win. Whether you're, a 1 seed, West Virginia was a, unbelievable team this year, or if they were at the bottom of the Big 12, or if they're where they're at, this is an opportunity against one of, if not the best player in the country, who we're going to talk about here in just a minute, and his team, ranked team, coming into your place. So this is a game you need to get up for, and this is like put up or shut up, man, because like this is another opportunity. West Virginia, over the last 3 home games, have lost 3 straight games at home, dating back to their first loss coming at home against Baylor, then lost to Texas Tech, and then lost to Utah, as we mentioned. So, and before that, West Virginia hadn't lost at home all season long. Now BYU comes to town. Let's put up or shut up. Let's get after it, and let's go win the basketball game. All March Madness talk, NCAA tournament talk, bubble talk, all that aside, we have an opportunity in front of ourselves to win a game against a really, really talented, unbelievably talented, incredibly high ceiling NBA talent, AJ Dybantsa, and a pretty good team around him, and you have an opportunity to beat them. So let's go do it. With that said, let's start with this kid, AJ Dybantsa, the freshman, who I remember they were talking about him last year with his commitment to BYU, and I was like, oh boy, we're going to see him next year, and certainly we have. He's averaging over 25 points a game, 6.8 boards, 3.8 assists. And, BYU's got some other ball players on this team, as we know, in Robert Wright III, who came over from Baylor. He's averaging 18 points a game, almost 5 assists. Really, really amazing sophomore year for him. Richie Saunders went down a few games ago and will not return. He had, I think it was just a leg injury. I forget how severe it was. Obviously severe enough to put him out for the season. And he was averaging 18 points a game, so that's a big blow. And then they got some other pieces that maybe you've heard and maybe you haven't. But AJ Dybantsa, starting with him, not only is he a projected top 2 pick in the NBA draft, but I don't think there's a hotter player in the country right now with how he's been playing, how he's been just filling it up game in, game out. I'll give you some numbers because his production has only gone up over the course of the season, and in Big 12 play, by first kind of glance at it, looks like he's averaging more than 25 points a game. The guy is absolutely filling it up, nation's leading scorer. And I'll just rattle off going in reverse order. So for the most recent game, back to the opener in Big 12 play, his point totals are absurd. 29 points in the loss. They're coming off a loss at home against UCF, 97-84. Dybantsa, he had 29 in that one. He had 29 against Iowa State in a win last Saturday. He had 35 against Arizona. He had 20 against Colorado, 36 against Baylor, 28 against Houston, 36 against Oklahoma State, 17 on 50% shooting in the loss at Kansas, 24 against Arizona the first time they met, 43 against Utah, 13 against Texas Tech, and then 4 more, TCU, Utah, Arizona State, and K-State. He had 25, 20, 23, and 24. The man is filling it up. He's a problem, and there's a reason he's going to go 1 or 2 in the NBA draft. And the way he's playing lately, makes you think he's going to be number 1. So, you'll look at that, and he hasn't scored under 20 since, the whole month of February. January 31st, he had 17 against Kansas and a 90-82 loss on that Saturday, and he shot 50%, made 2 of his 4 threes. But since then, he hasn't been under 20. He's been in the 30s several times. Again, he had a 43-point game against Utah, 35 against Arizona the second time they met, 24 the first time they met. He had 36 against Baylor. He's coming off back-to-back 29-point performances in a split with Iowa State and UCF. He's filling it up. The nation's leading scorer. And, I saw someone was like, again, a tweet I saw about, who's the most talented player to play at the Coliseum. I guess Allen Iverson, Someone mentioned Carmelo Anthony. That's a really good one. Someone mentioned Trae Young, and I just remember Javon Carter strapping him up. That was a wildly entertaining game back a few years ago. For some reason, not that he's the most talented, but I remember it was a big deal when Andrew Wiggins in Kansas came to town. And obviously Darren Peterson has played here this year. AJ Dybantsa is this is a big one. And so, you can bet the crowd's going to get on him and all that. Not that he's not used to that. He's a big name. He's a great talent, and he's going to have a long NBA career. But for his 1 year at BYU, again, he's averaging over 25 points a game. And since the Saunders injury against Colorado, which was 4 games ago, he got injured like in the first minute of that game. So really, they've played 4 full games without him, and they have split those. It was a overtime win against Colorado at home, in which Robert Wright went off in that game. He scored 39 points. I think that it was a career high for him. Then they lost to Arizona. Then they beat Iowa State. Then they lost to UCF at home at 97-84. And so, Dybantsa has been just elite, incredible production all season long. He's shooting at 53% from the floor, almost 37% from three, 25 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. And again, I mentioned, his, it was kind of a trio of scorers, right? With Dybantsa averaging 25, Robert Wright 18, Richie Saunders 18. Well, now it's a duo with Dybantsa and Wright. Wright's averaging 18 points, 5 assists. Kennard Davis averaging 7 points. Kiba Kiate, I think that's how it's pronounced. I remember he gave us the business last year, I think, on the road. He's averaging 6 points and almost 7 rebounds a game. But obviously, when you have a guy like Dybantsa and a guy like Robert Wright, who is he's elite, those are your top dogs. Those are the guys paving the way, leading the way. And there's not a whole lot of balance, right? With Saunders, it created, that third scorer, big three kind of thing like we've seen in the NBA in years past. But it's a two-man team, and it's not two-man team. It's a two-man scoring threat, and it's a scary scoring threat with these two guys at the top. So obviously, they are the two to keep an eye on. And what's also interesting as we just break down BYU this season, because they're ranked nationally, but they're 7th in the Big 12. They're 8-7. West Virginia's 7-8, right? So West Virginia goes and wins this game. Both those teams are 8-8, and West Virginia won the head-to-head. So, this is a team that's going to be in the tournament. They have the potential number one pick in the NBA draft, and West Virginia could, if you take care of business, could finish the season ahead of them in the Big 12 standings. There's a bit of a logjam between, UCF getting that win over BYU was big. They're at 9-6, and they're in sole possession of 6th in the Big 12. Then you got BYU and TCU at 8-7. You got West Virginia and Cincinnati both at 7-8. West Virginia, obviously, with the sweep of Cincinnati, having the leg up on them, and having the disadvantage against TCU, who just beat them, and they're a game up, 8-7. So there's a logjam right there in the middle of this thing, in the Big 12 standings. But this is an opportunity for West Virginia to get a leg up on. Well, you got a leg up on Cincinnati already. You beat BYU, you could potentially finish the Big 12 ahead of them, and so just something to monitor, because even if TCU finishes ahead of you, but you finish ahead of those two teams, again, I'm getting super hypothetical, which I don't love to do. Hey, well, at least we're not talking about the NCAA tournament. We're just talking about the Big 12 standings. West Virginia could finish in the top half of the Big 12. There is a path to that. They control their own destiny in that regard, without a doubt. Without a doubt. With 3 games left in the regular season, you control your own destiny, because you beat BYU, you're ahead of them. You're tied with Cincinnati right now, meaning they can't get ahead of you. And TCU might already be ahead of you, but they would be in 7th, and you could be in 8th, a.k.a. top half of the Big 12. Not bad, right? Lot to think about, though, a lot to accomplish before we get there, and certainly a lot. But as far as BYU this season, because they went through a rough stretch. They really did in Big 12 play. Again, they've since split Their last 4, they've won 3 out of the last 5, dating back to Baylor. But there was a stretch they lost 4 in a row against. They had a gauntlet thrown at them, and they didn't handle it well. They played Arizona, lost by 3. Kansas lost by 8. Oklahoma State on the road lost by 7. Then they played Houston and lost by 11. So that was a 4-game stretch that they had entered ranked as the 13th best team in the country when they hosted Arizona and lost that game by 3. Despite a second-half comeback effort that came up short. But they, to that point, were sitting at 17-2 and 5-1 in conference. Since then, 20-8 overall. Non-conference schedule, they lost a close one way back when, 86-84 to UConn. Beat Wisconsin, a ranked team at that point. Beat Clemson, a team West Virginia had a close loss to. They beat them in a 67-64 game. And again, then they started Big 12 play with a 4-0 start, dropped 1 to Texas Tech, beat Utah, and then went on a late 4-game skid. And so now they're sitting at 8-7 in conference play, 20-8 overall. Obviously, you have the best player in the country. You have an opportunity to make a run in March. You have a point guard like Robert Wright. You have an opportunity to make a run in March. But perhaps the thing that I'm most curious about, and if you're a BYU fan in the comments, you can help me out on YouTube, because I'm just kind of wondering, like, again, obviously I see it. They went through a 4-game stretch against 3 really, really good teams, or including 3 really good teams that they lost games to. But, like, what's over that stretch or any game that they've lost, what's kind of like the Achilles heel? What's the thing that this team can't seem to, I don't know. What's their thing that's causing problems? Because, again, the scoring's obviously there, and you just lost Saunders not that long ago, and so you can't, like, chalk it up to, well, we've struggled because he hasn't been there. Well, because that's only been the last few games, and you've won a couple of those games. So I'm just like, I don't know. I would guess, defensively there's struggles within that. But, again, you gave up 97 to UCF, who obviously likes to run. And they were blowing you out in the first half before a epic second half comeback that came up short. That game was wild, the game they're coming off of. 52-28 at halftime in favor of UCF. And then BYU put up 56 in the second half, but they gave up 45 to lose that one still by 13. I can't imagine at home putting up 56 in the second half and still losing by 13. That's crazy. Sometimes West Virginia scores 56, right? If you're a BYU fan, note that. You're coming off a second half in which sometimes that's West Virginia's scoring total for the game. Most recently, though, for the Mountaineers, you're coming off a 91-84 loss in a game against Oklahoma State, against a team who likes to run, and you kind of played more their style. And West Virginia made more shots than they usually do. Their field goal percentage, their three-point percentage was higher than it normally is, but you still lost. And so that was a bummer. The last 3 games have been bummers. Games that you desired to win, games that if you did win, we'd be having a very, very, very different conversation right now. But it was a tough stretch, and it could continue to look like a tough stretch if you fall in this one, or again, depending on how you close out this regular season. But again, it's as we talk about this being another opportunity, I'm not talking about March Madness. I'm talking about the fact that the best player in the country is coming to Morgantown on a Saturday night with a ranked team, and you win this game, you can move ahead of them in the Big 12 standings. So that's significant. And without going into great detail on it, because I don't see a need to because of where this West Virginia team is at this moment, Joe Lunardi still has them like on that magic sheet. Not the first 4 out, not the next 4 out, but in that little next group. So they're like according to Joe Lunardi, they're like the 10th team on the way out, sitting on the outside looking in at this moment. And I'd have to imagine some people have them at that level in some regard, but it just shows you how weak the bubble is, because West Virginia hasn't really moved a whole lot with 3 consecutive losses to bubble teams, 2 of them. And so you beat BYU. I don't know where you sit after that. Obviously, it's not enough. I would have to imagine this will be the last thing I say about it, I promise. I have to imagine West Virginia, you could potentially win out the regular season. 2 of those wins against BYU and UCF being against tournament teams, you could win out the regular season and maybe even win one in the conference tournament and then lose your next one, and you could still be on the outside looking in. And so that's period, right? And I would love to eat those words. I would love to come back here in a week or two and be like, all right, we got new life. Let's go win this game, and I think we might be in. I'm not going to do that right now, though, because you've lost 3 straight, and you're absolutely positively on the outside looking in, and you've given us no reason to think that you can fix that. But we'll see. It's an opportunity, and again, it's about, to me, it's about rewriting the narrative a little bit, because this season, though it's had ups and downs, though it's had moments where you've struggled, though it's had moments of triumph and great things, and really, especially in the Big 12, you've won 7 games, and you were just a few days ago, you were 7-5 in Big 12 play. You're now 7-8. But with just the simple fact, you're guaranteed 4 more games. 3 in the regular season, 1 in the conference tournament. Beyond that, who knows? What are you going to do with what you're guaranteed, right, to end the regular season? Can you rewrite the narrative, right? Can you go from a 3-game skid to a 3-game win streak and finish the season above 500 in Big 12 play, or you win 2 of them, finish the season at 500 in Big 12 play, which, considering how good this conference is, and 3 of those losses coming to teams that are going to be 1 or 2 seeds in Houston and Iowa State and Arizona, for year one with a new coach and a new roster, that ain't bad. And so as you think about rewriting the narrative, the opposite of what I've just explained is what would it look like to rewrite that. The opposite's also true. You allow this 3-game skid to snowball effect into more losses. You don't look back on this season as a successful one. I still think, NCAA tournament or not, there's an opportunity to look, and you might disagree, but when you look at this thing, big picture, West Virginia was picked like 11th in the preseason poll. Projected win totals, I don't know what you predicted or what I don't remember even dropping a prediction myself. But you rewrite the narrative. You look back on this season and we lose out 6 games in a row, and then you lose 7 in the conference tournament. Not the best looking season. You rewrite the narrative a little bit, make some noise down the stretch, beat a couple tournament teams, make the conference tournament and make some noise there. That's a different outlook on the season, independent of what March would look like. And that will lead us to this last kind of point, the thumbnail for this episode, man. It's time to put up or shut up, and this is an opportunity yet again, and opportunities are really, really, really running out now as the calendar's about to turn to March. Make something happen, go win the game. West Virginia's gotten off to slow starts, haven't been able to recover. They've, against Oklahoma State, gave up a lot of points and struggled down the stretch, struggled immensely in overtime. Play a full 40 minutes, win the game, and see what happens next week. So this is episode 156 of Mountaineer Moment, West Virginia and BYU. And as you know, or if you don't know, we will be back later on for a post-game reaction and analysis to this one. Right after it goes final, I'm going to record, and then I'm going to post that video. It should be up, 30, 40 minutes after the game goes final. So be on the lookout for that. Again, my name's Troy, episode 156, Mountaineer Moment. Let's go Mountaineers.